Second, we're off now. Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming back in. Hope you're still enjoying the sunny heat wave that we seem to be having. Well, in Scotland anyway. I don't care what it's like anywhere else, as long as we've got sunshine. You know, that's it. So today we are rejoined by this lovely young lady, Hannah Richards, or as she is also known, Hannah Haunts on TikTok. Hannah was with us about, I want to say 3 weeks ago.
I think it was, yeah, about 3 weeks ago, Scott. Not long at all. Time flies, doesn't it?
It does fly. I was talking to we Tarot Tracy on last night. We were doing the Tudors, and she's moved into a new house. And I thought she'd only been there about 4 or 5 weeks. She's been there 10 weeks. Was that
Wow.
never? She said, 10 weeks since you moved in? She said, oh, 10 weeks. I thought it was about a month. You know, and that's nearly the end of April, hitting on to May. So this year's just kind of disappearing. It doesn't seem that long since I took doing the Christmas decorations.
I know, don't even get me started on that, Scott. 5 minutes ago, really, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? And then it's Easter, and then I'll be starting to prepare for the Halloween decorations maybe next month. I don't know. You know, we like to do things a bit early, basically.
5 months early for Halloween.
I don't know. I mean, in the paranormal, is it ever too early for Halloween?
Not really. I mean, look what's on the wall behind me. I've got Halloween decorations up pretty much all year round, so I'm absolutely fine with that.
You know, there's my lovely wife in saying hello. She's in the living room just now.
Evening. Hi, everyone. So,
Halloween, yes, spooky season. Whoop whoop.
Oh yeah, can't beat it. Absolutely love it.
I mean, I'm a big Christmas fan, as Sarah will tell you. I've loved Christmas, even though it's not the same anymore. But I still love Christmas and the decorations, and you know all the sort of cheesy kind of stuff that goes with it.
Yeah. Oh, I do as well. Well, I think any excuse to have a celebration and have a good time, really, because life is short, isn't it? So why not enjoy the things that we're supposed to? And then find many more reasons to celebrate as well on top of those.
Sarah will tell you I'm a bit of a man child when it comes to excuse me, when it comes to Christmas, but I don't care. No. You know, as you say, life's short enough, so you might as well enjoy it. But tonight we're going to be talking about your books, but there's a wee story, as I said, I like to cover. I want you to tell us about first. I call it the hanging chair, basically. There's our Laura in. Evening, dear.
Yeah, the Busby Stoop chair that's in Thirsk Museum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's got an interesting story attached to that, hasn't it, really? And I posted a video recently on TikTok asking, would you dare sit in it, basically? Or is some history too dangerous to even touch? Because with the Busby Stoop chair, you've got quite a bit of a body count attached to it, really, haven't you? So
you have, the people sat in it in the car crash the same night, kind of thing.
That's right, the soldiers that were from a local airbase. So essentially, the story is of the Busby Stoop chair that it was a chair that was in the Drover's Arms was the pub. It's in Thirsk. That's what it was originally called anyway, before the legend. And a man called Busby, who murdered his father-in-law, was executed. But the night before his execution, he said he wanted to go and sit in his favourite chair and have a drink in his favourite pub one last time. Which is, I think we had a little bit of a chat about One for the Road, didn't we?
Aye, which is going to be a future show.
It is, definitely. So he did that, but as he arose from his chair, he cursed it and said that anyone who was to sit in it in the future would die a quick death. So since that time, there have been a few people who have dared sit in it, and like I say, they have tragically died. 2 soldiers from a nearby air base sat in it one night, and they died in a car crash, never made it back to base. And then I think there was a delivery driver as well who found the chair in the basement of the pub. He sat in it just for a bit of a rest, not really believing the curse that was attached to it. And he also died in a car accident just a few miles down the road from the pub. So at that point, the landlord had simply had enough, didn't want
Mm-hmm.
any more people to die. And so he donated it to the local museum, but on the strict proviso that it was hanged on the wall, so no one else could sit on it ever. And that's where it's remained to this day. And the pub is now called the Busby Stoop Arms as well. So yeah, it's a really intriguing story.
It is a really interesting one. I mean, curses and that. I don't know. You've heard, I've heard centuries. Curses on land, on families. So many different things you can curse. But I
That's
found,
right.
you think, well, these two soldiers that sat on it and passed away that night. Is that coincidence? But then you think, well, the delivery driver as well.
Yeah.
Once could be a coincidence. But two, I think you need to maybe. Some people might say I'm talking crap. I don't know, but start taking a wee bit of notice. Is the curse true? Maybe.
Well, this is why I asked the question at the end, would you risk it, really? Because even if you don't believe in these things, would you dare still sit in that chair just in case? Probably not. I would say. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I believe in curses. I don't think I've really investigated them enough or come across them too often, really, in my career as an investigator. But I wouldn't want to risk it, Scott, let's put it that way.
No, I know when you get married next year.
No, absolutely not. No.
Get somebody you don't like to sit in it just to test it out, see if it happens. Some
No,
enemy for
I would never. I would never. But there's a few curses like that, though, isn't there? There was a cursed chest that I heard of that was sitting in the old King's Head in Chester for a while, and that had a similar story attached to it that people who had touched it had died in car accidents or had heart attacks. And you've got the Hexham heads as well. There was a curse attached to that
As
as
you
well.
say,
So,
I think there's a question for you, Hannah, for Laura. Can anyone put a curse or hex on it? Are you planning something, Laura?
I don't know. Maybe you'd need to ask someone who practices paganism that kind of question. So I'm not too sure. I mean, I would imagine that you can send negative energy to anyone, can't you? And you can certainly say the words. What
But
happens
whether it
afterwards, whether
actually.
it's coincidence or down to the curse, that's something that we can't explain, really.
No, I think Laura's asking in reference to this donkey that's appeared on TikTok in the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 months, and he's just getting into the paranormal and stuff. And his latest thing is he's got somebody who's meant to be a high priest. I don't know
Right.
what. But this guy seemed like putting hexes on people, and
Yeah.
they were on the other night saying, he put a hex on somebody and it worked. So beware. And you think,
Right.
do you know what? No. I mean, this.
Well, I mean, we'll take his word for it, shall we? But
Well, because everything this guy says, I can't call it. Everything this clown says, is true.
yeah.
You know.
Well, must be. I mean, I did have, funnily enough, I had a lady contact me recently who I met at a venue that I investigate. She's a psychic medium, and she contacted me and said that somebody had messaged her saying that she'd been cursed by someone had sent her some bad energy and it was really affecting her life. And she wanted to know what she could do about it or how she could find out if that was actually the case.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my advice to her really was not to focus too much on the fact that, or the possibility that someone had sent her negative energy or who that might be, but instead just to focus on her own energy and protecting that and keeping it positive. So, it depends on what you believe in as well, but some people believe in crystals being able to protect you, or amulets, or even if it's something that's a total placebo, whatever it is that you feel, if you believe that
Mm-hmm.
you've got some negative energy attached to you, you can try and counteract that yourself, can't you? Just by putting some more positive energy around yourself. So that was
And then
ultimately the advice that I gave. I don't know whether it was right or not, Scott, but
No,
That's what I would.
see, I don't know very much about curses and stuff. Obviously I was cursed with good looks and that, but hey, that's the way it
There you
goes.
go. There you
I had to
go.
say that because Laura's watching and my wife's listening. They'll probably slag me off, but I don't care.
I'm
I don't
sure
know
she'll
if you.
100% agree with you on that.
Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you. What was I going to say? Aye. I think if you are in the mind frame, this is just my thoughts, that you have been cursed, there's big grey cloud hanging over you, so to speak, then things are going to happen to you because, there's that old saying, if you're looking for trouble, you'll find it,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
And
It's the
so if
same
you're,
with Ouija boards as well, isn't it? If you believe that something negative is going to come through, that belief can sometimes open a door, can't it? And you're going
I,
to believe that something will step through that door, whether or
I,
not something has or not. So belief can play a massive part in these things, have a massive
oh,
impact. Absolutely.
I definitely, it certainly can, and it can be something, as I said, if you've got a mindset that, excuse me, you're cursed, and it can be silly wee accidents you have about the house, everyday stuff that normally happens, I don't know, stubbing your toe or whatever, well, that's that curse. I definitely am
That's
cursed.
right. That's right. And there's an old saying as well, isn't there? Everything happens in threes. I don't know if you've heard
I,
that. Yeah,
I've heard that one many a time. So two bad things happen. You're always looking out for the third thing,
you are.
you know. And
And that would probably ordinarily happen anyway, but because of that saying, you're already looking out for it. Is that kind of feeding into what's going to happen? Are you creating your own future essentially by thinking these things?
are
Which is
you
what
cursing
I gave
yourself?
the advice of, absolutely. Which is why I
Mm.
gave the advice of try and surround yourself with positivity instead.
That's it. I totally agree. If anyone was to say to me, "Oh, I think I'm cursing," I could do that. I was just like, forget it. Just go out and go on with your life. That's if you're cursed, you're buggered basically. So what's the point? That would be terrible. Well, I'll be keeping an eye out, Laura, just in case you're planning any curses or hexes, or I'll be keeping a sharp eye on the horizon. But before we come on to your books, you were saying that the mindset, the mind is a powerful thing.
It is.
You know, um,
Yeah.
if it's like, how can I put it? If with the Covenant, I don't know if you've been to Edinburgh. I think you have been to Edinburgh, haven't you?
Yeah, a
You
couple of
have.
times. Brilliant city.
The Covenanters prison. I don't know if you went there. It's attached to Greyfriars.
I
That's
did
good.
walk around that, Scott. I think I've done a post about that actually on TikTok as well
You
about the
probably have. You
experience.
lose track of your posts because you do that many. No, but I mean, listen, we've been in the Covenanters prison is now locked off. It's been locked off for quite a few years now because of all the events that took place.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
but we've been in and out the Covenanters quite a few times, and when you go in, you you do sense a different atmosphere. But you go to ask yourself, is that in your mind because you know the history of the place? So you're
Yeah.
expecting it.
I think that
No.
does play into it to some extent. I mean, suggestion, the power of suggestion as well, the power of expectation, anticipation. Um, and if you want something to happen as well, you're going to be looking for the smallest of things, aren't you? The
Mm-hmm.
smallest of sounds is going to be something paranormal, even if it's not. Um, I think you just everything gets heightened, doesn't it, when you're in that kind of place with that kind of history and those kind of reports attached to it.
Aye, and it kind of goes round and round and round. Laura's wanting to know how do you go about finding out if you have an attachment, not a bad one?
Well, again, I don't really have an answer to that question. What I would say is instead of focusing on the attachment, try and focus on yourself and surround yourself with positive energy. I mean, there are things that if you do strongly believe that you do have an attachment, there are uh, things that you can do, such as energy healing, there's Reiki, there's smudging. sage, Palo
Mhm.
Santo that you can use to try and, if you believe in trying to get rid of negative energy that way, then that's something else that countless people use to do that. So there are things that you can do, but ultimately, like I say, I think it's about focusing on yourself, positivity, your health, happiness, and trying to get that negativity away from yourself, basically.
Because I think Laura's asking, because I don't know if I told you the car story or not with Laura.
No, I don't think
Whenever
so.
we pick Laura up, she's always sits in the back, and the middle seat, the sense of the middle seat, 9 times out of 10 goes off. You know, the seatbelt thing, but there's nobody
Right.
there.
Oh,
And
interesting.
some people say, "Oh, it's a faulty sensor," but it's happened in our last 2 cars as well. Every time Laura
Okay.
gets in, it's always the middle seat will flash up and beep beep beep. You know, but it goes off after so many seconds, whatever. But it happens quite a bit. So you know, if you brought a pal with you, Laura, you brought a friend with you. It's a weird one. Do you
Well,
know what I mean? Some
it
people might
depends,
think,
like I say, in what you believe, doesn't it? I mean, it could be you're looking at it as an attachment, it could be a guardian angel, it could just be coincidence. So there's multiple explanations for it, isn't there? But belief does play a massive part in which one of those routes you go down and how you try to tackle it.
aye, it does. She says, I do believe. Yeah, I do believe that, however, there's nothing negative. I'm a have. She says she's a cheery wee soul.
Yeah. Well,
She's
that's
a
great.
cheery,
So it could just be someone who's looking out for you then, really.
and just always like it's too lazy to take a bus, so they come with us in the car. Basically, they're too lazy to walk. You know what I mean? But it's see that's the thing about the paranormal, Hannah. There's that many branches to the tree, really, isn't there?
Oh, so many, so many. And this is why I post so many videos, Scott, because something pops into my brain every day. And it's like, well, what do I pick? Which topic do I pick? Which story do I pick? What should I talk about? There's just so much of it, and it's the choice, isn't it?
Yeah,
But
and
there's,
it's
yeah, so many branches. And curses is one that I have been looking at a little bit recently, simply because of the message that I got from that lady on Facebook. And looking into stories like the Hexen Heads and the Busby Stoop Chair as well.
so can we be expecting some cursing TikToks? Some TikToks about curses.
Yeah, absolutely. The more I look into it, then the more I'm discovering. So there'll definitely be more stories about cursed objects, cursed items, what I think about them as well, ultimately, once I've done a little bit more research. Another thing that I have been looking at a lot recently is sleep paralysis,
Right,
because
aye.
my partner has had several unusual experiences, and he's not entirely convinced that it is totally down to sleep paralysis, and neither am I with some of the symptoms and some of the experiences that he's had as well. So recently, a few other people have been sending me their sleep paralysis experiences, and some of them are absolutely fascinating. And what I find intriguing is just the consistency between the stories in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the so-called hallucinations that occur during sleep paralysis. So that, yeah,
So
that's something else that I've been looking at quite a lot recently.
I'm going to I'm going to sound it right. There's Laura's other half in the short chap, Craig. Um,
Okay.
I'm going to sound totally stupid. Sleep paralysis is when you wake up but you can't move. Is that correct? Am I wrong?
It's no, yeah, you're kind of right. So it's the state between the sleep state and the wake state. So it's where your brain is waking up, but your body isn't awake yet. That's how science describes it anyway. So you're still technically in a dream state, but you just
Mm-hmm.
can't move. But what I am discovering is that, like I say, there's so much consistency between the accounts. What I've been hearing, the hallucinations, things that people see, things that people hear during some of these experiences. So typically multiple people are seeing things like a hat man figure of a hat man, or shadows moving around the room, or a visualization of an old hag crawling up their body, things like that. And like I say, it is multiple people. So what is
Mm-hmm.
the explanation for that, really? What is happening? Is it down to science, or is there a little bit more to it? Are we seeing something that we don't ordinarily get a glimpse of when we're in that sleep-wake state?
Well, here's one theory, right? Probably totally wrong, But however, I've always thought, every dream, well, majority of people dream and stuff, and I think when we're sleeping, the spirit sees that as a great chance of trying to get messages through to us, because we're sleeping, our mind's not occupied with everyday life. So maybe is it a case that spirits try to tell you something, but they realise that you're just about to wake up, so they want to, how you put it, hold on to you that wee bit longer before you're
Yeah,
fully up and running.
maybe, because I do know a lot of people who tell me that they've had their ancestors or deceased family members coming to them in their sleep with messages,
Mm-hmm.
premonitions even, and those things have come true, or warnings. I talk about one such story in one of my books, actually. A relative coming to a man in a dream and telling him that he needed to go to the cemetery. Um, it was his mother that appeared to him in the dream, and he was a little bit shaken by it because he'd never really had a dream like that before. And he thought, well, why do I need to go to the cemetery? But I will. So he went through the cemetery on the way to work that morning, and he went to his mother's grave, and he noticed that a little bit further up, another grave had been disturbed, one of his ancestors. And actually, there'd been some grave robbers there that had been digging up the bones.
Mm-hmm.
So he reported it to the police, and the people were caught. So was that his mother trying to warn him from beyond the grave that a family member was being disturbed and he needed to prevent it from happening to her? So I
That
find
is.
these things very, very intriguing and very spooky, but why else would he go down to the graveyard that morning and to
No,
discover
that's
that?
true. And it's such a, I mean, there are cases of people, it's happened to me a couple of times, you'll have a dream and you wake up in the morning and you're totally convinced that it actually happened. You
Oh,
know,
so many times. Yeah,
you
some of them seem
you
so
know,
real, don't they? Like
the,
you feel
the
like you've actually got out of bed, got gone to the toilet, made yourself a cup of tea, and and all of that sometimes. And you're still lying in bed. At least that happened to me once a few years ago, anyway. So I was quite
no,
shocked to discover when I finally woke up that I was still in bed.
I mean, I remember my first house was a top floor flat. I don't know if you call them flat. I do call them flats in England.
Yeah, flats, apartments, both of those
And
really.
had a little micro, a Nissan micro car. And
Yeah.
so just staying there, and I had a dream that I'd parked the car in the hall in the flat. And I actually got up in the morning and went into the hall and looked for it
Just to
because I was
check.
expecting. I actually went to check because I was expecting to see the car sitting in the hall
Yeah.
in the house. And I thought, what the hell? But it was that real.
I
But
know. I
I
know.
was convinced it was, I parked the car in the hall last night. Did I
Some
park it
of
in
them
the?
are though. I mean, there's just so much to unpack with dreams alone, though, isn't there, Scott? You know what you were saying about there being so many strands to the paranormal. I think dreams is to some extent one of those strands because we simply don't know enough about the brain. We don't know enough about dreams. Um, so it is unexplained a lot, isn't it? A lot of it is unexplained. Why we do certain things, what lucid dreaming is, why we have premonitions in these dreams, why we see our relatives, because dreams are there really to process what we've seen and experienced during the day. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we don't have those triggers that relate to the dreams either. So it's a massive mystery to me, and I'm fascinated by dreams.
Same way I talk a lot in my sleep. The wife and my daughter as well. They tell me that I talk a lot in my sleep. One, occasionally said I shouted out, "There's no snow in Bannockburn." No idea what I was dreaming about, but there's no snow in Bannockburn.
Oh,
You know,
goodness.
that they still. I mean, that's a good few months ago, but they still bring that one up. That I just shouted, you know.
I mean,
Look,
that in itself is strange, isn't it? That people talk during their sleep and
as a
think
laugh,
they can sleep
presumably I
through it.
laugh quite a bit in my sleep. You know,
Yeah.
call people rude names as well. I've got no idea who, but you know, seemingly I call people very rude names as well. And the same aspect, kind of think people with Alzheimer's dementia, they start seeing, hearing, interacting with people we cannot see, although both conditions deteriorate brain cells. I think that's interesting because, you know, people, you know, with these conditions, they are kind of detached from the everyday world, you know, so they don't have that distraction that we would have.
That could
So,
be true. That could be true. I mean, they're still to some extent observing everything around them, though, aren't they? And the brain may well still be processing what they've seen or heard or experienced. So again,
that's quite a
we
good
just
point.
don't really know
Um,
enough about the brain, do we? That's the problem. I mean, I was watching a YouTube video a while ago about a neurosurgeon, a brain surgeon, who'd had a near-death experience. So he'd turned to religion and started to explore the brain a little bit more. And he'd actually cut a brain in half, and he started
mhm,
to experiment with this particular individual and showed one set of images to one eye and another set of images to the other, and asked the person to find the two images that related to each other, even though one eye couldn't see what the other eye was seeing, and vice versa. And they were able to tell which two items related to each other, even though both halves of the brain were totally disconnected. Um, and the surgeon wasn't really able to determine how the two sides were communicating with each other. There's a
quite,
fascinating video about it on YouTube. I can't remember the name of the surgeon off the top of my head, but yeah, absolutely fascinating. And this is what I mean about how we just simply do not know enough about the capabilities of the brain, what it can do.
we don't. I mean, they say we only use a certain percentage. My wife's put some interesting comments up, Hannah. I'm going to put them up. This is in reference to there's no snow in Bannockburn. You know, they kind of piled up here a wee bit. I've been watching them come up. So it's no snow in Bannockburn, right? You better get that mouse. It's on top of the door. Hurry, it's going to get me.
Is that another one of your dreams there?
These are all
Wow.
things that I've said. Leave the dishes. I'll get them yesterday.
Yes.
We don't need cat food. We don't have any cats. We get 2 cats.
Oh,
Um, I'm going to take you fishing at the weekend, but don't worry. I have a heated tent that fits in the car.
wow. I mean, that's a considerable amount of words to say when you're
And it's
asleep,
quite,
really, isn't it?
it's quite varied. And, you know, I mean, the last one there could make kind of sense, maybe. I don't know. Laura
Yeah.
sleeps with her. Laura told us, I think it was last week, she sleeps with one arm in the air,
Really?
which
Do
I
you not
found
get all
quite
of the
bizarre.
blood draining, the training? Do you not wake up with pins and needles in your hand from doing that?
I
Although
thought
one of
this
my
would be
friends did fall asleep with her hands like that once. She fell asleep. It was quite bizarre. I was thinking, what on earth is she dreaming about?
well, that's it. You know, you wake up with a big smile on your face. Morning. The hell
Yeah,
are
what have you
you?
been dreaming about then? I don't think we want
Right.
to know under those circumstances, do you?
Had a happy
Probably
dream.
not.
There's a mouse cupboard staring at me. That's another one. I think that's something to the one at the door.
Yeah.
Whenever I dream my way, he always appears as a teenage version of himself, not sure why. I'll put your other comment up in a wee second. I've heard, I don't know if you've heard of it, Hannah, but when we pass over, we can go back we can take the form that we were most happy with. You know,
Yeah.
we can get back to the kind of age that we were most happy with. You know, I've heard that
Yeah.
quite a few times. So possibly that's, you know, Craig's brother was happy as a teenager. That was his kind of happy time.
Absolutely. I've heard of that theory. The other theory as well is that when someone passes over, you see them how you strongly remember that person, or maybe have the fondest memories of that person at that particular age, or have the strongest bond with them at that particular age, and that's how they then present to you. But there are multiple theories about that, really, aren't there? Which is super intriguing.
I mean, they always say, to put these comments up first, then that's the mild ones. You're normally shouting at people and calling them names. And I've
I'd
been
like to
told the
know more
names of
about
them.
those.
No, my husband tries to put it down. Let's never. Sure, Scott's daughter will tell you I do as well. We one stays with Lauren Craig quite a bit, and so she'll probably testify to Laura putting her hand in the air. I was just what you're saying, you know, maybe Craig identified as a teenager, and so his brother presents himself for that. I mean, that's happened to me when I went to see a medium with my grandma. You know, so she showed me. It was a wee habit my grandma had. The medium says to me, she's going with this at her waist. She says, you'll know what she means. And as soon as the medium, this medium didn't know me for Adam, but my grandma wore one of the old-fashioned aprons, you know, and she was tiny. And so the apron string was too big, and she was always tying it and untying it, and it used to drive me and my older brother nuts. You know, she wore it when she got up in the morning till she went to bed, you know, every 7 days a week. And she used to go at that. She said, Grandma, you just leave it. It's fine. So this medium says, she's doing this. And she says, you'll recognise her with this. And the woman was spot on. So I think possibly that's wise. Maybe. I mean, again, we're no experts. This is just different theories, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
But
my mum's had a few interesting dreams about my grandparents who have sadly passed away. And on one occasion, they did appear to her in their younger forms. But most of the time, I think she sees them how she remembered them most. It's an odd one, really. And I see them obviously as older people when they visit me in my dreams. So I wonder if it's down to the individual's perception as opposed to the spirit wanting to present themselves that way. But it could be a mix. I mean, we don't really know, do we? That's the mystery of
we
it, and probably
don't.
never will. Probably never
I
will.
did,
But there are some when it comes down to dreaming about my grandparents. I've just found it very interesting how they present differently to both me and my mum.
as you say, well, I mean, it's with my dad. You know, my dad came through that same night to this medium, and I mean, my biggest memory, obviously, I've got lots of memories with my dad, but he passed away with cancer, and he went down to nothing basically. But I always remember my dad kind of looked like Jack Nicholson, but he was always immaculate. You know, always that shirt and tie on, and the hair was always perfect, combed back and perfect. And that night I seen this medium. She says, you know, I've got a gentleman here. And she described him as very Hollywood looking.
Wow.
And says,
Okay.
you'll recognise him for what I'm saying to you. He looks very like film star Hollywood looking. And I always say to my dad, you know, you look like Jack Nicholson, you handsome bugger, you know, stuff like that. You know, my dad and I used to wind each other up to hell.
Oh.
But that's, whenever I mention my dad, that's the image that comes into my head straight away. You know, when he was all turned out, you know. I mean, he was a mechanic, so I've got memories of him lying under cars with the overalls on covered in oil and, you know, all the usual stuff that your dad used to do. But that's the memory, and that's how this woman says that he was showing himself as a kind of well-dressed sort of movie star, you know. But as you say, there's that many different questions and I've got a cushion behind me on this seat, and it keeps bloody slipping down. That's why I keep moving about. I mean, it's the same as people have asked, you know, how do you know we've got a soul? What's your soul?
Yeah.
You know, and the
Yeah, I
way
mean, how do you? I mean,
how do
wasn't there an
you
experiment
look at
once
that?
about trying to weigh the soul? I think there was at one point, many years ago now, I think someone tried to weigh someone at the point
There,
of death, and didn't they actually notice that there was
there was
a
a significant, not a
right,
significant, but there was a noticeable drop. I remember that.
wasn't there? Yeah, a noticeable drop. I mean, obviously there are things that are expelled from the body when we pass away naturally, like gases, fluids, that sort of thing. But I think everything was accounted for in this particular experiment, so there shouldn't actually have been any difference in weight,
Right.
but there was. And I think that remains unexplained. So is that the soul, or is that some kind of consciousness? I mean, again, I would highly recommend looking for this YouTube video from this neurosurgeon, because he talks about consciousness quite a lot as well, and how he
Mm-hmm.
feels it's very separate to the brain. Very
I mean,
separate.
they do say, you know, back in the days when they used to chop people's heads off, that you remain conscious for, I think it was something like 12 seconds or something, they reckoned. How they timed that, I don't know. I doubt there was a wee guy with a watch, you know, kind of like, go, you know, chop, and then. But that was part of the reason that they would hold the head up, you know, so
Yeah.
the person could still see what was going on. But it's something like 10 or 12 seconds or something. But it made me think, you know, well, people says, what is your soul? You know, what's your
Mm.
spirit? And I'll say to them, well, if you think about it, your body is just basically meat and water. You know, your liver, your heart, it's just meat, basically, you know, your brain.
Bunch of cells,
But
aren't we, really?
yeah, I think, well, what makes you the person that you are? What
Yeah.
makes you, you know, when you're sleeping, what makes you remember to breathe? What makes you think? What makes you happy? You know, what makes you a happy person or a crab at sod, basically? I says, to me, that's your soul, basically, your spirit. I don't know if that, it makes sense to me, you know, but
It
then a
makes
lot of
sense
things
to
make
me as
sense to
well.
me,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
I mean, I
know.
can't remember who said it now, Scott, but there's a famous quote, isn't there, that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And that is something very much that I do believe.
Hmm.
That we are those spiritual beings, and we're in meat suits essentially, living out our earthly experiences. So
And you
yeah,
could
I do think that, that maybe that is the soul, that we are that spiritual being, that spiritual consciousness.
And you do get that. I mean, you know, I was going to say I've been lucky enough, not lucky enough. When my dad passed, you know, I had to go back up to the hospital. I missed him passing. Um, I think he waited. You know, I was saying they waited till he went away, and then well, I think that's exactly what my dad did. And so I had to go straight back up to the hospital, and he was still lying in a hospital bed, and you could just tell by looking at him that he was somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you've ever seen somebody that's passed away.
I have. I've had my grandparents, and I had some quite unusual experiences with both of them, really. So my grandfather, before he passed away, he was seeing soldiers and military nurses in the hospital. And I did wonder, is he starting to see the spirit world because he's getting close to death himself
Hmm.
now? Um, and similar to your dad, really. I was with my granddad a lot towards the end, but he waited until I left for half an hour to pass away, because he was a very private man, and I think he didn't want me to see him in that moment.
Hmm.
And similarly with my grandmother as well. My mum and I were with her when she passed away, and we actually, in the end, we gave her permission to pass away, because we said to the grandma, it's okay, you don't need to stay with us. She got global aphasia, so she wasn't able
Hmm.
to move. She was completely paralyzed from the neck down. So it was absolutely awful to see her decline towards the end. But when we said that to her, Grandma don't worry about us, we'll be okay. You don't need to stay here for us. She literally passed away within minutes. And we're convinced that she could see her ancestors because she was gazing off into the corner of the room. And something else that we saw, and this will stick with me forever, and I do not have an explanation for this at all, and neither does my mum. And I'm so glad that she saw exactly the same thing. But when my grandma passed away, and she took her, her last breath was exhaled, we actually saw something rise from my grandma's body. And
Mm-hmm.
neither of us can explain that. But when it happened, my mum said, "Did you see that?" And I knew instantly what she meant. And I said, "Yeah, what was that? What came out of my grandma?" And we both described it the same way. And it was like a wisp or a mist. It didn't look very big, probably about the size of my hand. And it came flying out of my grandma's chest like it looked like, I don't know, it sounds ridiculous, but like a fairy, like you would imagine a fairy to look.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there were no features. It didn't have a human, any kind of human features. It was just, wispy, and it flew up into the air. And both me and my mum saw that, and we can't explain what that was. We are pretty convinced that we saw my grandma's spirit leave her body, but I'm saying this now, and I'm probably going to have men in white coats come to get me tomorrow, Scott, and my mum as well. But I swear that is what happened to both of us. We saw that, and we cannot get our heads around it at all.
See, the fact that the both of you saw it, if it was just maybe
Yeah,
you or just your mum, then you can maybe say, well, maybe it was in the mind, you were imagined. But the fact that the two of you saw it, the same time, then, I'm not saying it was, but, it does bear thinking about, the two
yeah.
of you
I mean,
saw.
we can't think of any other rational explanation for it. To be perfectly honest, there was nothing around that could have caused that, and it's never happened since. We've never seen anything like that since in the house. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so was it coincidence that it just happened at the time that my grandma passed away, or did we actually see her spirit? I don't know, but it's something that certainly stayed with me.
And as you were saying, Hannah, I'll stick this comment up for Laura first. There's another quote which says, which is, this body accepted as mine is only simplistic, lifeless shell, an empty vessel, a temporary host for my true heart, my essence or soul. That's quite deep, isn't it?
Beautiful quote, absolutely. And I have heard that before.
It's nice. That's quite a deal. Well done on that one, Laura. That's quite a thingy one.
Yeah.
Um, but as you were
And
saying,
I do agree with that. I do agree that, that's what we are. We're a vessel for something much bigger. I mean, this probably leads into another conversation. This might be for a future a future night, Scott, but
I
reincarnation is
very possible. But just what you're saying about, sometimes the way I'm convinced my dad was ready to go, but he
Mhm.
did hang on because I mean we get called up about 7 o'clock on the Sunday morning. You better come up. He's not going to see 9 o'clock kind of thing. So we ran, ran up to the hospital and and he was just lying there. The day before he was, I went up to see it. I was up seeing him every day, every afternoon and night. But the day before it, I walked in and he was sitting up, full colour. So he was a bus driver as well, and all his bus driver pals, and he was sitting like, I was actually late because I'd cut my hand that day and I was over in A&E getting stitched up. And when I went in, he's like, what the hell have you been? I said, well, I was there getting stitched up. And it was sort of all right with you. But then the next day, it was just back to. And so we sat all day up until just after 11 o'clock at night, and the doctors came in and says, why did you go home? He's going to be fine. Just come back up tomorrow. And I get
Mhm.
into the house about 20 past 11, and it was about 25 to 12, the phone went. And it was a landline, didn't have mobile back then. And as soon as the phone went, I knew that's the hospital. And I picked up,
Mhm.
says, your dad passed away at, 12, 17, or 11 17 or something like that. I just missed it by minutes. It was minutes after we left. And so
Yeah.
I'm back up the hospital. And I was even in the room saying to him, you waited till I left, you old bugger, you. You know, if he was still with me. So I missed you by five minutes or so after all the times I've come up here and sat with you, and you decided to bugger off 5 minutes after I got home. You know,
Like
so
pride for you, don't
I do you all. I've never received it, but you know, I gave
you?
him
The
any
same
bother
thing.
anyway.
The exact same thing happened to me with my granddad. I'd literally just left and was on my way home just to grab a shower to go back again. And Mum rang me on the way home to tell me that he'd passed away. And so I was literally, I'd missed it by 5 minutes, missed him passing away by 5 minutes. So I'm also convinced that he just didn't want me there for that out of dignity and to see
Aye,
that
you
action
know.
happening, because we were very close. My grandfather and I were very, very close.
Well, me and my
So
dad,
yeah,
we were close, but we lost touch for a few years, you know. But then
yeah,
we get back in touch, and we became kind of joined at the hip, basically. And then he was diagnosed with cancer, and we lost him. I think I lost him about 3. It's going to sound bad. The good thing was that it was quick. It was only about 3
yeah.
months between getting diagnosed and him passing away. So, you know, but he was told straight off the bat, you know, there's nothing we can do for you. It's just a matter of time. But he was fine with it. You know, I'm buggered, son. I'm for the off, you know. I'll be away soon. Look after my car. And I said, I'm not looking after your car. As soon as you pop it, I'm selling it. Because you'll be right. You know. And
What
so
an
he did.
amazing attitude to have, though, when you have that kind of news bestowed upon you. So it just shows the strength of character that your dad must have had.
He was quite a strong man, character-wise, you know, and we ended up just kidding on. You know, I wish you would just hurry up and pop off, you know, because so I can sell your motor. You know, I think it was your way of dealing with it as well, you
That's
know.
it. Yeah, absolutely.
And
No, I understand
he would always say to me, "Have you washed my car?" And because
that.
car was a pride and joy, I said, "No, why would I wash it? It's not if you're going to drive it again." I says, "You're doing more. You'll be getting to hearse, and that'll be it, basically, you know." But we laughed and joked about it, you know, and it did help it. Laura says, it's right what happens in here. My deceased dog and cat, if I didn't live with 2 others, I think I was going crazy, but even Scott's daughter has seen them, and I have evidence of them interacting with me.
Yeah.
That's what
I
Craig's
mean,
dad was in hospital. His wife by his side constantly. She went home to shower within those 30 minutes. He passed away with his 2 sons by his side. He waited, he knew. I think they do,
yeah,
you know. And
absolutely.
what
I
you're
agree.
saying, you know, about your grandma looking at the. My dad did that,
Mm,
and he was saying his mum was waiting on him. You know, and a couple of times he says, Scott, your grand's waiting on me. I need to go. You know, and that was the last few days before we lost him. So but he kept on looking there to the left hand, but so your grand's waiting there for me, Scott. I need to
yeah.
go. And I would kid on me and well, hurry and bugger off then. You know, if you're going, don't keep grand waiting, kind of thing. You didn't want him to go, but you know, it kind of broke up a wee bit. But we've been on for 48 minutes and we're not spoken about your books yet.
We do this, don't we? We always find so many other interesting things to talk about.
What,
No pre-meds
what,
tonight, though, Scott. So at least we've not gone off topic too much.
well, aye, that's true. We haven't actually went off topic. Laura's happy to send you the video, though,
I'd love to
of
see it. Absolutely.
the, the
So this is, yeah,
um,
this is the. I mean, we talked about pets last time, didn't we? And spirit animals and
yeah.
that sort of thing. There's a few famous cases of spirit animals, isn't there? I mean, obviously, but I think one of the most infamous ones that we've got in the UK is probably Black Shuck. You know, the dog.
I covered that we actually covered, Mark and I covered that story. That's quite an interesting story. Mark and I done it last year, I
Yeah,
think. We covered the Black Shuck story.
so
Greyfriars
intriguing.
Bobby.
Yeah, yeah, Greyfriars Bobby as well. I mean, there's even a spirit cat in the Guildhall in Leicester that's supposed to brush past your legs when you're walking up the stairs towards the library. So there are some infamous pet ghosts, aren't there?
There are, yeah, and I mean, you know, our old house was quite active, and we always felt we've got 2 cats, And we've got a dog now. We didn't have a dog back in time, but Laura will tell us, Sarah as well. Even her daughter will tell you, you'd be lying in your bed and you would feel something jumping onto the bed. And we thought it was one of the cats, and you look up, but then none of the cats were there, but you felt something jumping. And other times you see the mattress going down, but quite a few times it was like one of the cats would jump up. And you say, we use what, and then you look and there's nobody there. Two cats weren't even in the house. So, we've got a soul, feelings, all the rest of it. So animals.
Absolutely. Yeah, they must do. They must do. That's my opinion anyway, that they do.
So then the thing is, the animals realise that they're passed on? Now they say that sometimes people don't realise they're passed on.
Yeah, I mean, possibly they don't. It depends on the circumstances.
It's another question.
Another question that we can examine.
Before we move on to your books, just when Laura mentioned that video, what did you make of the video I sent you?
Which one was that, Scott? Oh, yeah, sorry. I've had that many videos sent to me over the past couple of weeks. They all kind of blur into one after a while. But no, it was really interesting capture, that one, wasn't it? I couldn't really think of a rational explanation for that. It didn't look like motion blur or anything, didn't it? Or yeah, very interesting capture.
I was saying that it slowed it down, but it was just in real time, the speed that it kind of shot across the camera.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It didn't look like any kind of motion blur or a typical dust storm or anything like that, did it? It was very strange.
Well, I sent it to Mark as well. And obviously, Mark, he kind of dissected it, and he asked me a list of questions. Was anybody else in the room? Did anybody walk in front of the uterus? I says no, because if somebody walked in front of the camera, you'd see them walking in front of the camera.
You would, yeah, you would. You get.
Because I don't know anybody can move that fast.
No, exactly. And this is something that we spoke about last time as well, didn't we? About how fast these things move sometimes when you catch them, which is insane. Because again, HBI, when we were on an investigation at the Old Nick, which is a theatre, but it was a former prison in Gainsborough. We had a camera set up, a locked off camera set up in a hallway, and we captured, it was a really great capture actually, Lee spotted it, a shadow figure moving on the wall, but it was moving so quick and we couldn't replicate it at all. I mean, we tried multiple times, but where you could actually walk, it wasn't casting a shadow on that particular area of the wall. Where you would need to be to cast a shadow on that area of the wall, you couldn't get to. So we couldn't debunk that. But again, it was just the speed of this thing. And that's something that it fascinates me every single time when we get captures like that.
It was Sarah that noticed it. She noticed it the next day when she was going through the footage, and she shouted me in, and she could play it a few times to me, and then she slowed it right down, and it does look like a torso and arms of her walking or running. Yeah, I was just curious to know what your professional thoughts on it were.
Yeah, I couldn't think of I couldn't see an immediate debunk, Scott. So without being there, I found it very, very interesting. A very interesting.
Well, thank you. That's one for us. So we posted it on the page a long time ago, but that was it. We're no same as yourself. We're no these kind of the group kind of blowhards as we call them. You get captured and you want the world to know about it. And, everybody look at me, look what we caught in our living room or toilet or whatever. No, that's no.
You get excited, don't you? And secretly, you get a little bit disappointed if somebody does come up with a proper debunk for it. So I think, oh, damn it. I really wanted that to be paranormal. But ultimately, if there's an explanation for something, there's an explanation. And you just can't avoid it, can you? That's the problem. But no, yours was very interesting, definitely.
It's kind of bittersweet. I remember one of the first photographs we took as a Sarah and I first started out. It was in Greyfriars, actually. and we took it for the side of the kirk, and it looked. There was this image against the wall, and it looked like a wizard, basically, you know. And we couldn't, so we put it into this group that we were in, and this guy, he took the photo and he took it apart and he came back to us. He says, "Listen, that's a plant pot," and he sent us the photo. I don't know how he did it, but he sent us back, and we thought, "Damn it,
That's a fair explanation. Damn.
you know,
Oh no.
that was it, though, damn." But we were happy, because we didn't make cabbages of ourselves running about shouting,
Well,
we've
that's
got a wizard. There's a wizard in Greyfriars and all the rest of it. Start rattling pots and everything. The guy says, "Look, mate, that's actually a plant pot you've caught." I say, "Well,
I'm disappointed that there's no wizard in Greyfriars, to be honest. I really
well,
am. But
there are some kid-on wizards with Harry Potter.
yeah,
You know,
very true,
so
very true. But speaking of images that we've captured, I actually did a video earlier today about a place called Cork Abbey in Derbyshire, where several years ago, we were talking over a decade ago, I was visiting the place, and there's some tunnels that run underneath the ground. And while I was walking through the tunnels, there was nobody else there. I felt like there was somebody walking behind me. So I turned around and took 3 photographs in quick succession. And what came up on the photographs is quite bizarre, really. If you get a chance to go and have a look at the video, because I put the photographs on there.
I'll look at it later on tonight.
I can see a figure walking or starting to form coming around the corner, but there was absolutely no one else there but me. So I put it on today and said, try and debunk this one, guys, because I can't. So I'm looking for somebody to try and offer me an explanation for this, but it's definitely not any kind of reflection. There were no lights, there were no plant pots. The tunnel walls were completely bare. So there was absolutely nothing hanging on any of the walls. And like I say, no one there. So if we're working on that basis, I've struggled to find any kind of rational explanation. But Cork Abbey is known to be haunted. It's a National Trust property. Most of the hauntings, I think, are linked to the actual main building itself and a lot of the outbuildings as well. Not many with the tunnels. But I did discover because I've written about it in my Ashby de la Zouche book as well, Cork Abbey, because it's very, very close to Ashby. And what I did discover when I was doing my research, I came across, I think it was a Reddit post or maybe even a Facebook post, but one of the two, of someone who visited Cork Abbey with their mum, and they'd been in the tunnels and they'd actually seen a dark shadow shrouded in light in those tunnels, which is pretty much what I think I captured on camera. So it's just very strange that this lady had a very similar experience to me. The only difference is that I didn't see it with my own eyes. I saw it through the camera. She actually saw it with her own eyes and didn't take a photograph. So if we'd been there together, that would have been the ideal recipe.
It would have been, it's when you capture things on camera. I mean, I did Caldwell with Laura's husband and Rigger and Andy for Spig, I don't know, month and a half ago. I don't know if I sent you the photograph, but there's a Caldwell's an old stately home. It was built in 1721, 1723. And there's a basement, and I was doing the basement, taking photos, and it looked to us as if there was somebody, a male figure standing on the stairs, watching me, basically. I sent it to different people. I already sent it to you, Han, and some people couldn't see it, which is fair enough,
Yeah.
But other people mail me back and say, no, you can definitely see, a figure. Somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody actually sent the photo back and they'd circled. You see, and it was the exact spot that we were seeing the figure in.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. That's the thing I like. You want to debunk as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing. I have recently done a post about pareidolia as well, because our brain does try and piece things together for us, doesn't it? We do see objects that we're familiar with in things. You can look at the clouds and you can see a face in the clouds. So I'm very cautious when it comes to photographs of so-called spirits or ghosts, because of pareidolia, because I know that our brain does that. But then also we can't say that it's pareidolia every single time. There's
No,
got to be more to it, hasn't there? Sometimes I think there is. I've
there is.
seen photographs where there's been multiple orbs, and 99% of the time it is dust or it's an insect just reflecting in the IR camera. But when you zoom in on some of them, you do see some unusual things. And when you start to see faces and that sort of thing, you do start to think, oh, is there more to it? I don't know. But yeah, I'm very cautious when it comes to photographs, because of pareidolia, and because a lot of the time it is just dust or an insect. But there's always that 1% that you see and you think, wow, could it be
Mhm.
more? Is there more to that? And yeah, fantastic.
100. We've had two weird experiences with photographs. One was at Loudon-Kirk. Laura, she'll back with Sarah as well. One of the investigations we did at Loudon-Kirk, I took photographs, and in the Kirk there's a Celtic cross, a stone Celtic cross, which is kind of planted in the ground.
Mhm.
And I took a photograph of it, and there was about, I don't know, about 10 of us there or something, 8 or 10 people there. And I looked at the photograph, and there was a wee girl peeking round the side of the cross, black hair, some kind of white dress thing
Mm.
on, and she was peeking around the side of the cross. I showed it to everybody there. Everybody looked at my phone and said, and everybody seen it, seen her, sorry. But when I looked at the photographs later on, she was gone.
How weird. Now that's an odd one, isn't it? How does that even
Yeah.
happen?
Well,
Yeah.
Laura,
I mean,
Laura's talking about the Caldwell one. Laura, I'm talking about the one at Loudon with the wee girl behind, peeking out from behind the cross.
yeah, that's quite
Laura's talking
weird.
about
I
the
mean,
Caldwell
why would it
photograph.
not show up later? That's not something I've experienced before.
We can't, and I've asked so many people about this, and nobody can explain it. But everybody there, and I say there was at least 8 A's there that night, and I put the phone out, I held my phone like that, and I said, "Look," and everybody looked at the phone, and they said, "There's a wee girl standing there watching us." And then I was going through my photos later on, and I thought, "Where the hell did wee lassie go?" And I sent the photo to everybody that was there. I said, "She's not there in the photo."
Now that is
And
is bizarre. Yeah,
that
I
was
can't think of an
wild.
explanation for that one.
I
Because
can't, I
even if you'd
mean,
accidentally deleted that particular photograph, it would still have been in your deleted items, wouldn't it? So what happened to it? Where did she
what,
go? That's bizarre.
which makes sense. Caldwell, as we know, James is there. Was it him? Huh? What I'm talking about the photograph that we took at Loudon, I don't know, about 4 years ago or something now, with the wee girl behind the cross, and then everybody's seen it, seen the wee girl, and then I looked at the photos later on that night, and she was gone, which makes sense. I.e., Caldwell, as we know, James is there. Was it him? All right, Laura's talking about there's a guy in Caldwell in the base, in the basin, the basement. We know there's an individual, a male called James. I picked
Mm.
him up in quite a few investigations in the past. That's what. Sorry, Laura, dear. That's what she's mean. Could that be James that's in that photograph at Caldwell? But it is. It's just. It was so bizarre, Hannah. When she was there earlier on, gone later on that night. Poof. Where did she go?
Yeah,
Well, I didn't go
yeah.
poof, but you know what I mean. She was just vanished.
Just disappeared.
And
Yeah, very strange. Very strange.
it's
No,
just.
I can't explain that one. Definitely not.
I'll probably never will be explained. But move it. I told you we're only doing an hour, but let's talk about your books. before we have to wind up.
Well, I
That's
mean,
a
we've
real fine
mentioned
book.
a couple of stories out of the books tonight. To be honest, you know, the man who had the experience with his mother appearing to him in the dream, and Cork
Mhm.
Abbey as well. So they're just a couple of the stories that you can find in the books.
So,
Um,
so we have kind of covered your books in a way, sort of thing.
Yes, yeah, we've definitely hinted towards them, Scott. So
Well, yeah.
there's so much rich history around where I live, um, but none of the ghost stories or legends or folklore really is recorded. Only mostly about Leicester and some of the major stories from surrounding villages, but no one had really done a deep dive or captured some of the local memories or local family stories and experiences that happened. So that's really my
Mhm.
goal is to do that. And I've started with some of the villages and towns that I've grown up in or lived in throughout my life. And Ibstock and Ashby are two of those with very rich histories as well. It's amazing what you can discover when you start looking into the town and the area that you're in, what you can find happened, and you know, there's always some surprises. Everywhere's got more of a rich history than you can possibly imagine.
No, I totally get it. If I had a wee second, Laura's asking, explain this one. My son's 26 now. His grandmother and father's side died when I was 8 months pregnant. She knew she was going to be a grandmother. She never met her grandson. However, every photo my son is in, there's a blue orb or blue streak. So much he hates getting his pics. I've seen the photographs. There's a blue orb or streak, a blue mark in every
Yeah,
photograph.
every single
Um,
one. Now that's unusual. That's very unusual, isn't it? I mean, it can't be down to the camera, can it? Or the lighting every single time. You do have to start to
no,
wonder how much of this is coincidence or technical error after a while. So who knows? Maybe it could well be his grandmother returning. Um, there with him as some kind of guardian angel. Absolutely. Or it could be another guardian angel that's always there with him that shows up in these photographs. Who knows? Um,
that's another weird one. But I what you're saying about the history, where you done the deep dive. See, I mean, obviously we love history, you know, castles and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I don't think people realise just how much history is on their doorstep.
so much. I mean, just thinking about, well, I mean, Ibstock and Ashby. I've written about several castles in these two books alone, right on my doorstep. I mean, Ashby's got a very famous castle. It was a Norman manor house that became a stronghold. It's had two of the owners were executed. It was a royalist stronghold during the Civil War, and it was under siege and slighted after
Mm.
the war. There was even a plague that broke out during that Civil War. So much rich history. That's just at one castle that's 5 minutes down the road from me. Um, and there's a lot of places as well that have had castles that no longer exist. And a lot of people don't even realise that the place has even had a castle. So there's a few of
Aye.
those as well that I've discovered and spoken about, written about in my books too. Because that history just gets lost, really, doesn't it? If it's not an English heritage site or it's not protected in any way, a lot of these castles are on private land and you can't access them, but they exist, did exist, and there's still
They do.
places that
Aye.
stay on, which is
A classic
fascinating.
one for us is the Fleero topic call with regards to the wee girl. I saw that photo real time. She was there. Then looking back, she wasn't there. So that will remain a
Yeah,
mystery. But I mean, obviously, you know, I'm from Glasgow, and you've got the big cemetery in Glasgow, the necropolis,
hmm
and in the necropolis there's a monument. I didn't know, you know, I'm born and bred in Glasgow, and I've been in the necropolis many times, just wandering about. There's a monument there called the Bell de Bray, and it's where William Wallace had won his first battles when he
hmm
captured Glasgow Castle
yeah.
and annihilated the English, basically. I had no idea there used to be a castle, you know, just no far from where the necropolis stands now.
There you
Um,
go.
And it wasn't until we started doing the Wallace Trail that there was a Society of William Wallace that told us about this. And I says to them, "Look, do you know how many times I've passed that monument? And, you know, I've looked at it, thought, oh, that's nice, and kept going. I had no idea. See, the castle was just kind of out there. The wall was captured. So there's so many castles and, you know, buildings that they're not there anymore, or it's just a bit of a wall or something. It's like the Flodden Wall in Edinburgh. You know, also the Flodden Wall was built to keep the English out, and then the Scottish realised that the English weren't coming. So they started to demolish the wall. You're welcome, Doc. Thank you.
That's the other thing, isn't it? I mean, how things have changed through time. How much can we not see now that was there once and has been replaced by something else? I mean, you only have to look at churches, really, to look at the layers and layers and layers of history, some of which you'll never uncover because they are below a protected church or a protected building. But it is fascinating, isn't it, how things change and what once was, really. I love all of that.
Oh, so do we. I mean, I watched a guy on, I can't remember his name, Sarah will remember him, but he did, he's for Edinburgh. I don't know if he does them anymore. He used to be on all the time. And he does video, he goes to different parts of Edinburgh, gives you the history of the places, and it was the Flodden Wall he was talking about one time. And, you know, a lot of people don't realise that a big chunk of the wall runs right down the middle of Greyfriars, right through the kirkyard. But this guy was standing next to residential houses in Edinburgh, next to a wall. He says, this is part of the Flodden Wall.
Yeah.
People in here don't realise that their garden wall is the Flodden Wall.
That's right. It's fascinating, isn't it, what you've got in back gardens and, you know, running under housing estates. It's incredible, really, when you start to look into it and see what's underground. I mean, my house, it's relatively new. It's 10 years old this year. But I've actually got a protected strip along the bottom of my garden because when they were doing the construction, they uncovered a Roman road that was running along the bottom of my garden. And it's fascinating, isn't it? So I can't have any permanent structures in that particular area of my garden because I've got the Via Divana running through it. And it's just incredible, really, to think what else is out there in the country that we haven't uncovered or that we do know about, but we've forgotten, really, with time, or people who live in that area don't even realise what's on their very doorsteps. But this particular area is crazy rich with history, and I just wanted to capture some of that in a modern way, and try and get that out there a little bit more.
It gets people more interested, you know. You say, well, no, I didn't realise that was there. I need to have a wee look into that and stuff, you know. And, you know, travel with word of mouth as well. You know, maybe Beck could be to Agnes. Did you know about that thing? No, I didn't. Well, wait till you hear this that's right down the hill for us, you know. And, you know, word of mouth's a great bit of advertising, but we just would say what's beneath our feet. Something I've always wondered, right? This might be a bit quite macabre and what have you, I don't know, morbid, but you know, there's X amount of graveyards and cemeteries in the UK, right, spread everywhere. Now, if you think of all the people that's lived in this country down through the centuries, you're talking about millions and millions of people. You think, where are they all buried?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is a topic that I actually talk about in one of my books again, because excuse me, what I did discover with St Helens Churchyard in Ashby is that people were dug up, or sometimes they weren't even dug up. After a certain period of time, it would be considered that the body would be decomposed, and then other people would simply just be buried on top of them. So sites have been used and reused. There's been mass graves over time, haven't there? I mean, look at the plague, for example. Multiple plague hits across the country for hundreds, thousands of bodies at one point. But yeah, that is a real thing. People have dug up the bones, dug up the bodies, and reburied, buried other people on top or on the same site multiple times.
And it makes you wonder about, especially in Edinburgh with St Giles now, before Greyfriars was a thing, you seen the St Giles kirkyard, which is just would have been facing where the cathedral is. It's now a courthouse, a government building. It's now offices, some kind of thing. So all that used to be a kirkyard, but they ran out of room, and they moved. Well, they say they moved the kirkyard, but way back 1600s. But you got to wonder to yourself, did they just move the headstones and leave the bodies?
Yes, I have heard of that happening multiple times as well. Where they say they've moved the graveyard, but they haven't really moved the graveyard. It is just the stones, the headstones that have been moved. I mean, I think sometimes they have moved the bodies, but a lot of the time, unless I think it's a relatively short period of time that it takes before you can actually rebury something, or bury something on that same spot. After the body's decomposed, it's not as long as you might think. I think it's something like 7 years, something like that.
Right. It's the same as plot
It's a
23.
short period of time anyway, but then you can just bury someone else in that exact spot, which is bizarre, isn't it? And you hear all sorts of horror stories as well as to what they did with the bones years ago. Glue factories and all that sort of thing. Don't you really? Is it just down to folklore and rumour, or is there something to it? Because they have to go somewhere, don't they?
Well, exactly. As how much is legend, how much is truth? It's the same as plot 23 in Edinburgh.
Plot 23? No, I don't think so.
See where St Giles Cathedral is? Just behind there's a car park.
Right.
And it's divided up into the parking spaces. But in one particular space, there's a white brick in the middle of it. And it's plot 23, space 23, whatever you call it. That is said to be the grave of John Knox.
Oh, right, okay.
Because the story goes that when they were moving all the bodies, he was considered too important to move. So they left him there. And there's a white. See, this is something that a lot of people just walk over it and don't realise, that John Knox could be underneath their feet.
Well, I mean, look at what happened with King Richard III. He was discovered in a car park in Leicester.
Aye, a multi-storey car park.
It was just a council car park. Yeah, just a council car park. But I mean, the odd thing is, it was the first parking space that they started to excavate. It was marked with the letter R. And there you go. There's King Richard III, lying directly under 3 feet of tarmac and soil. I mean, you can't write it, can you really? And I do wonder, what a coincidence. It's remarkable that the letter R was actually above him.
And people had no idea.
No, people were parked. I mean, I think people did have an idea that he was maybe buried somewhere around that area. There were legends suggested that he'd been dug up a few centuries after he was buried and his body had been thrown into the river. But other people persisted that he must be buried under a car park somewhere because that's where Leicester Cathedral was. Now, whether it's a similar story and that other bodies were moved and King Richard's was left there because it was considered too important to move once it was discovered, because it would have been they would have known it was King Richard by the look of the skeleton, because he did have that very distinct feature, didn't he? So it makes you wonder, did someone discover it years ago and leave it there because they knew it was too important to move? And then hundreds of years later, there's a car park and people are parking on top of the king. Crazy.
You get your SUV in Tappy-Ritchie. Do you know what I mean? But it's all over the country, and it's not just graves. I mean, like the gold bricks in Edinburgh. Did you see the gold bricks when you were here?
Don't
in the
think
Royal Mile.
so.
If
No, I
you go
don't
up to
think I've
St
heard of
Giles,
Old Brook.
if you go up to the St Giles end of the Royal Mile, you'll see on the ground, it's quite a big area. There's gold bricks laid out in the shape of a big, I like to say, a big square, basically. And it stretches across the other side of the road in the Royal Mile and then cuts back in to where the Heart of Midlothian is. That is the actual outline of the old toll booth prison.
Wow. See,
That's
I
where the
probably walked
prison
over it
is.
and not realised that's exactly
Aye,
what we're trying to say here, isn't it? I mean, I've visited Edinburgh a couple of times. I've walked the Royal Mile multiple times from end to end, but I never knew that, Scott. So, and it's a
well,
shame, isn't it, that we don't realise what's directly under our feet. And Edinburgh is one of those places that, again, is so rich. There's so much, isn't there, to uncover and discover in
aye.
that city.
There's
And I'm finding that out not just about cities, but about our smaller little towns and rural little villages and hamlets. They've all got so much for us to uncover. It's fascinating.
the dates are way, 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 way back. But no, so the next time you're in Edinburgh, look up the Goldberg. You'll see the Heart of Midlothian, it's called as well.
I
It's
will.
a big
I'll
heart shape. Um,
make sure I'm a bit more observant next time about what I'm walking over. This is the thing, isn't it? But there's so much to take in.
that there is with the Royal. I mean, it's the same as I could go at the you get the Guth Cross at the bottom end of the mile, just facing Hollywood, the Palace. It's
Yeah.
a stone circle in the middle of the road. That was the site of the old maiden, which predated the guillotine. It was an early form of the guillotine. It predated the French one by about 200 years. And it
Hmm.
was invented by a guy called John Douglas or George Douglas. And the
Mm.
whole idea was that it could be assembled and disassembled and taken to different parts of Edinburgh for executions.
Hmm.
But down at the bottom of the mile, that was the main place where it was used, and it's just a stone circle. You think how many
Mm.
people lost their heads on that, and people walk and drive over it every day, and
Yeah.
it's just different
Without even
colour of brick.
thinking about it. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but could go on all night about it, Hannah. Could go on all night because you
Yeah,
say there's that much to everything. But I think that's I know 20 minutes, so I think we'll kind of wind it up there. But obviously you're coming back again anyway. I'm sorry we never
yeah.
got to dive into your books, but we found other stuff to chat about
We did speak about my book, Scott. No, it was great to talk about some of the
briefly.
stories that you can find in there. So no, thank you for again inviting me on. I appreciate it.
Um, we did, but we stayed on the paranormal kind of topics quite
We
well.
did. We did very well tonight. Yeah.
Proud of
Proud of
that.
ourselves.
No
Yeah.
no cooking tips or weather warnings or
No,
tornado
that's it.
warnings or anything like that. It's quite
Not
interesting.
tonight. Not tonight. Purely spooky.
But purely PP, purely paranormal.
That's
Um,
it.
but I'll keep a hold of you just a wee second after we come off. So where can people find you?
Again, people can find me on TikTok under Hannah's Haunts. So please do have a look for me on there. You can find me on Facebook as well, Hannah L. Richards. I've recently set up a page to talk about my books. I've got some more books coming out later this year as well, which I can talk about next time, Scott. Also,
Mm-hmm.
you can contact our team, HBI. We've got a new video that's recently come out about 3 locations that we investigated. So it's a 3-in-1. So it's about the Emergency Services Museum in Sheffield, Gedling train station, and the Galleries of Justice as well in Nottingham, which is a fascinating place. So if you're into watching paranormal investigations, that might be a good one to watch. And again, you can contact HBI as well through YouTube or through our page on Facebook too. So lots of ways that you can get hold of me.
So basically, she's everywhere.
I am,
Basically,
yeah,
just all over the place. You
like
know what I mean?
glitter floating around the UK.
Famous. So we say famous.
Oh,
You
I
know,
don't know. Definitely not. Definitely not. But
uh, that's
definitely enjoying what I'm doing, which is what it's all about, isn't it?
aye. That's 100%. That's what it's all about. You get it. Guys, people that are just into paranormal because they want to make money, they want to be famous, they want to be Zach Baggins or whoever, and that's the people that don't have the passion.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
You
and
know,
I absolutely love it. I don't care whether I'm famous or not, Scott. It's probably easier if I'm not.
yeah. I've not. It would be always. I've always said, Sky or whoever came along and said, look, we want PIH to do a 12-episode series for us. We would turn it down
Mm,
because
yeah,
that's
I think I would as well. It's not really the life that I would want, to be perfectly honest. I like to be in control of things, and I like to make sure that I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
and
So,
it takes
so
it
no,
personal. If you're working for the man, shall we say, it takes a
yeah,
kind of personal side because then, and yourself, no doubt it's happened to you. It's happened to us a few times. You plan to go out on, say, a Friday night investigation, and you think, come Friday morning, you might not be feeling too well, or you're just in the areas. You think, oh, do you know what? We'll go tomorrow night. We'll do it next week or something. You put it off. But if you're working for the man, you don't have any choice. You have to go out. Rain,
absolutely.
sleet, or snow, whatever. So no, they
That's
can.
very true. Yeah,
We shall just stay
no
the
working for the man. No working for the man. We don't like that.
we shall just stay the humble persons that we are.
And
Right?
happily so,
Yeah.
Scott.
Happily, happily humble. No, that's
Happily
what I say.
humble.
No, anyway, I'll keep holding you for a wee set after we come off. So that's it, folks. So a big thank you to this lovely young lady, Hannah. So we've got Hannah Hodge, TikTok, just everywhere basically. Go and type in Hannah Hodge, you'll find her. She's all over the place. We're back on Thursday night with Perry G. Morgan, who we've not had on for quite a bit of time, a couple of years. Penny's coming back, and Hannah will be back with us quite a few times because you've not seen the last of her. You've not seen the last of her, I mean. Aye, that's what I meant.
Oh, good.
So
Good.
enjoy the rest of your evening, folks. Not there's much left to it, but you know what I mean. And we'll talk to you soon. So cheers. Bye. Bye.
Bye, everyone.